The research vessel Argus 9 drifted quietly through the nebula, its hull gleaming like a silver ghost. Inside, the air hummed with the steady pulse of engines and the faint whisper of filtered oxygen. Dr. Elias Ward sat alone in Lab Sector 3, his gloved hands hovering over a portable DNA analyzer. The readout blinked, waiting for data. Across from him, behind a transparent energy partition, sat the subject of his latest mission, the one they called Seren, a violet-skinned humanoid with eyes that shimmered like bioluminescent oceans. She had arrived in silence, found in the wreckage of a crashed scout pod orbiting Epsilon Eridani IV. Every scan said she was alien. Every reading said she wasn't supposed to exist. And yet, something about her felt familiar. Elias had spent 12 years studying cross-species genetic drift across the Persian Arm. He'd mapped over 80 sentient genomes, each with their own evolutionary signatures. Divergent, ancient, unmistakably alien. But Seren's DNA was wrong, or rather, too right. The base sequences were near identical to human patterns. The coding for blood oxygenation, neural development, even mitochondrial resonance, all human. There were differences, yes, enhancements, recessive markers, immune stabilizers. But the core of her? It was human DNA, perfected. He watched her through the glass. She didn't look afraid, more like she was waiting for him to catch up. "Do you understand why you're here?" Elias asked, voice steady through the intercom. Seren tilted her head. "You're trying to decide what I am. You're not denying you're alien?" She smiled faintly. "To you, everyone out here is alien." He leaned back in his chair, studying her expression. Her tone carried no arrogance, just quiet amusement, like someone hearing an echo of a story she already knew the ending to. "The genetic analysis says otherwise," he said finally. "You're not just similar to humans, you are one." Seren's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Maybe your definition of human is too small." Hours passed. The crew of the Argus 9 avoided the lab, whispering rumors in the mess hall about the purple-skinned woman locked behind the glass. Some said she was a spy. Others thought she was a biological weapon. But Elias stayed. He couldn't look away. The readouts were impossible. Every sequence aligned with known Terran DNA, but with centuries of divergence unaccounted for. It was as if she had evolved separately for thousands of years, yet never lost the blueprint of humanity. Finally, he spoke again. "Where are you from?" Seren's gaze didn't waver. "Home. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters." Later that night, he ran her genome through the Terragenetic archive. The system blinked, calculating cross-species commonality ratios. Result, 99.87% Homo sapiens. He stared at the screen, his breath catching. That number wasn't possible, not for a species that claimed to have never visited Earth. He dug deeper, searching for lineage matches. The algorithm returned a single sequence, one that matched his own genetic signature by 37%. He froze. That meant shared ancestry. "Impossible," he whispered. Seren watched him from the other side of the partition. "You found it, didn't you?" He looked up sharply. "Found what?" "The connection." Elias stood. "You knew." She nodded once, her expression unreadable. "I came here because of you." He felt his pulse quicken. "That's not possible. I was born on Mars Colony 3. I've never left human territory until now." "Your ancestors did," she said softly. "And they didn't all come back." He moved closer to the partition. "You're saying you're descended from humans who left the cradle early?" "That's not possible. The first exodus didn't begin until—" "Your records are wrong," Seren interrupted gently. "You think your species started its journey when it began keeping track. But humans were always leaving, always reaching. Some of us just went farther." Her words sent a chill down his spine. "You're saying you're one of us." "From before the collapse," she smiled faintly. "Not me, my people. The ones who survived it." Elias stared, the implications swirling in his mind. "That would mean you're not alien at all. You're an offshoot, an evolved branch of humanity that continued without us." Seren's expression softened. "We stopped calling ourselves human a long time ago. The stars made us different, but the blood remembers." He swallowed hard. "Why now? Why reveal yourself after all this time?" "Because your kind started searching again," she said quietly. "And you were the one who found us." He took a deep breath, trying to process. "The Empire will never believe this. They don't have to, Seren said. They only need to understand that the universe doesn't belong to one version of humanity. Elias hesitated. Then what do you want from me? Her gaze locked on his. A choice. That single word echoed in his mind. A choice for what? Seren leaned closer to the glass. To decide what you call alien. To decide whether bloodlines matter more than understanding. Her voice softened. You're standing at the same crossroad your ancestors faced. Will you reach out or turn away again? He felt something inside him shift, like a gear clicking into place. You came all this way just to ask me that? She smiled. No, I came because I remembered your name. He froze. You couldn't have. Her expression was calm, almost sad. Your ancestor, Dr. Elias Ward I, was one of the scientists who sent the first colony ship toward the Persian Arm. He never returned. But his legacy did. He felt the room tilt slightly. That's not possible. Your blood carries his code, she said, and mine carries the echo of those who followed him. We were never strangers, Elias, just separated by time. For the first time, he didn't see her as an alien, or even a mystery. He saw her as a reflection of something humanity had forgotten, its persistence, its reach, its endless need to explore. The DNA scanner beside him beeped softly, finalizing its analysis. The screen read match confirmed, shared human ancestry detected. He looked up at her. What now? Seren smiled faintly. Now we find out what we still have in common. The Argus 9 was never meant to hold secrets. Its corridors were narrow, its crew small, and gossip moved faster than light. Within 12 hours of the initial scan, whispers spread that Dr. Elias Ward had found something strange in the genetics lab, something the scanners couldn't classify. By morning, the captain called for a report. Elias stood at the viewport outside command, the DNA drive clenched in his hand. The data inside was a revelation and a danger. If command learned what he'd discovered, Seren wouldn't live to see another day. Behind him, the ship's engines thrummed like a heartbeat. He could feel the choice pressing against his thoughts, truth or survival. Dr. Ward, came a voice behind him. He turned. It was Captain Rourke, a hard-eyed woman with a soldier's spine and a diplomat's tone. I hear your specimen's been interesting. Elias forced a smile. All specimens are, Captain. Cut the charm, she said. The crew's talking. There's a rumor she's human. He hesitated just long enough for her to notice. Rourke's gaze sharpened. That's not a denial. Inside the lab, Seren watched them from behind the glass, her expression unreadable. The faint hum of the containment field reflected off her violet skin like rippling water. Rourke nodded toward her. I want the truth, Doctor. What did you find? Elias looked down at the drive in his hand. Preliminary analysis shows similarities, nothing conclusive. Then why are you shaking? Rourke asked softly. He didn't answer. The captain sighed. You've been on my ship long enough to know how this works. The moment a discovery threatens protocol, it's out of your hands. He looked up. And into whose? Central Command, she said simply. They'll decide what she is. When the captain left, Elias exhaled shakily. His fingers trembled around the drive. Across the glass, Seren's eyes met his. She doesn't believe you, she said. He gave a tired smile. No, she doesn't believe in anything she can't control. Seren tilted her head slightly. You humans still fear what you used to be. What's that supposed to mean? You've spent centuries proving you're not like the species that left the cradle, she said quietly. But you still carry their hunger, the need to know what's out there, and the fear of finding yourselves in it. That night, Elias returned to the lab alone. The Argus 9 floated through the dark between stars, its sensors blind to the nebula's interference. He approached the console. I have to hide the data, he whispered. If command gets it, they'll weaponize it. They'll want to know why you're different. Seren studied him from the shadows. You're risking your career. He gave a soft, humorless laugh. You make it sound like I had one worth keeping. She stepped closer to the partition. Why help me? He hesitated. Because if you're right, if your people are what we used to be, then maybe you're not the one who needs saving. For the first time, her expression softened. You think your species needs saving? He nodded slowly. I think we forgot who we are. We built machines to do our thinking, fleets to do our fighting, and laws to tell us who's allowed to be called human. Seren placed her hand against the glass. And you? He mirrored the gesture unconsciously. I study what we've lost. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Then maybe that's why you found me. The next day, Command sent an encrypted transmission. Rourke summoned him immediately. Dr. Ward, Central wants confirmation of your findings. They're dispatching a retrieval team to bring the specimen back to Mars Prime. Elias's heart sank. That's not a good idea. Why? She's not stable. Then it's all the more reason to move her, Rourke said. They'll debrief her under controlled conditions. He knew what that meant. Controlled conditions. Dissection, isolation, silence. Permission to remain with the specimen until transfer, he said quickly. Rourke studied him. You're not telling me everything, are you? Elias forced a steady breath. No, Captain. I'm telling you enough. Hours later, he returned to the lab. Serene sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed in thought. They're coming for you, he said quietly. I know, she replied without opening her eyes. I can feel the transmission hum through the hull. He frowned. You can feel it? Her lips curved faintly. Our physiology still carries the old instincts. You evolved past them. We didn't. Elias crouched near the glass. Then you understand what's coming. She opened her eyes. Yes, the question is, do you? He swallowed hard. You said your people survived the collapse. How? Serene rose slowly, the soft light of the containment field tracing the lines of her form. We didn't survive it, she said. We became it. What does that mean? When the Terran colonies fell, our ancestors changed themselves to endure the radiation, the famine, the loss of atmosphere. We rewrote our own biology. Elias blinked. You edited your DNA? Long before you learned to fear it, she said softly. We turned evolution into art, but in doing so we lost something, the memory of where we came from. Elias leaned forward. You want it back? Serene nodded. And you carry the missing half. What half? Your genome still has the dormant sequences that we erased. Empathy, curiosity, fragility, the things that make you incomplete and whole. Her words struck deep. He'd spent his entire life studying genomes like equations. But in that moment he felt more like a part of one. The intercom blared suddenly. Security to Lab Sector 3. Prepare the specimen for transport. Serene's gaze didn't leave his. It's time. Elias turned to the console. His fingers hovered over the control pad. If I open the door, I can't protect you. You never could, she said. You can only choose what story you tell about me. The alarms began to flash. Red lights painted the lab in pulsing color. Elias made his choice. The containment field dropped with a low hum. Serene stepped forward, breathing the unfiltered air for the first time. The purple hue of her skin shimmered faintly, adapting to the cooler temperature. You shouldn't trust me, she said quietly. I don't, Elias replied, but I trust the truth. They turned as the lab doors opened. Security officers rushing in, weapons raised. Elias stood between them and her. She's not your prisoner, he said. Stand down, Doctor, one of the guards barked. She's not alien. Elias shouted. She's us. The room froze. Rourke appeared behind the guards, her expression unreadable. Explain yourself, Doctor. Elias handed her the DNA drive. Run it yourself. You'll see. She stared at him, then at Serene. Slowly, she took the drive and inserted it into her wrist terminal. The results appeared instantly, glowing on the small holographic screen. Match confirmed, 99.87% human. The silence that followed was absolute. Rourke lowered the terminal, her voice a whisper. That's impossible. Serene met her gaze. So was your first step into the stars. The silence in the lab stretched on until it became a sound of its own. Only the low hum of the containment systems filled the air, and even that seemed afraid to break the moment. Captain Rourke stared at the glowing hologram projected from her wrist, the impossible genetic match shining like a quiet accusation. Elias stood motionless, his chest tight. Serene watched both of them, expression calm, patient, almost sorrowful. Rourke finally spoke. This is fabricated. Her voice trembled, but she masked it with authority. There's no way a foreign genome could match ours. You tampered with the data. Elias shook his head. The data's clean. Cross-verified on 3 systems. Rourke's eyes flicked to Serene. You're saying this. Creature is human. I'm saying she's family, Elias replied softly. Rourke's hand twitched toward her sidearm. That's enough. "Captain, enough!" she snapped. Her composure cracked just for a moment, and in that break Elias saw what she was really afraid of. Not Seren, not him, but the truth. Seren stepped forward. "You're afraid of what this means for you." Rourke turned her glare toward her. "Afraid? No, I'm trained to eliminate threats." "Then you're a poor student," Seren said quietly. "Because what you fear isn't danger, it's reflection." The captain raised her weapon. Elias moved instinctively, placing himself between them. "Rourke, stop," he said. "She's unarmed. So were half the things that ended civilizations." Seren's voice was soft, almost tender. "You think your species began on Earth. You think the stars were your conquest. You've built empires on a lie." Rourke's finger tightened on the trigger. "And what's the truth, then?" "That you're all descendants of something older," Seren said. "Something that seeded both you and me." Elias's breath caught. "A progenitor race," Serene nodded. "The first architects. The ones who made us both." Rourke's gun wavered. "We would have found evidence." "You did," Seren said. "You just called it myth." Elias's mind raced. The genetic patterns, the dormant sequences, the shared coding architecture, it all made sense now. Humanity's DNA wasn't native to Earth. It was engineered. The human genome had fingerprints, and the ones who made it didn't stop with one version. Why tell us now? Lycus asked. Seren turned her gaze to the viewport, where distant stars burned like the eyes of gods. "Because the architects are returning." The words hit like gravity collapsing. Rourke lowered her weapon slowly. "You're saying the species that created humanity is still alive?" "Yes," Seren said. "And they're not coming back to reunite. They're coming back to harvest what they left behind." The captain's voice hardened. "That's absurd. We would have detected them." "You already have," Seren whispered. "You just didn't recognize the signal." Elias frowned. "What signal?" "The beacon in the Epsilon Eridani field," she said. "You called it an energy anomaly." "It's not. It's a recall pulse." Elias's eyes widened. "That frequency, we've been using it for decades to calibrate long-range communications." "Yes," Seren said quietly. "They taught you to build it. Without realizing you've been answering them." Rourke stepped closer, her tone clipped. "And you expect us to believe you're some lost descendant of a forgotten branch of humanity, here to warn us of space gods?" Serene met her eyes evenly. "No, I expect you to believe your own DNA." Elias turned to the console. "Captain, she's right. Look at the mitochondrial residue markers. They're older than the human evolutionary timeline, by millions of years." He pointed to the data projection. "Our species didn't evolve from primates naturally. We were constructed from an existing template. Their template." Rourke's lips parted slightly. "You mean we're not original?" Seren smiled faintly. "Originality was never the point. Continuity was." The captain lowered her weapon fully, the weight of the revelation settling into her shoulders. "Why you? Why send you here?" Seren took a slow breath. "Because my people stopped believing. We forgot the architects were our creators, or that we were created for a purpose. But when your species rediscovered the beacon, they knew what would happen next. Someone had to warn you." Elias frowned. "Warn us of what?" Serene looked up, her voice calm. "Assimilation." She gestured toward the scanner. "You think you've evolved past us, but your technology, your bioengineering, your implants, all of it follows the same blueprint they left behind. You've been building the future they designed for you piece by piece without realizing it." Rourke whispered. "Then what do they want?" Seren's eyes darkened. "Completion. They left fragments of their code across the galaxy. We were the living test. You were the final stage." Elias felt the floor tilt beneath him. "You mean they used us to rebuild themselves?" Seren nodded slowly. "And now that the signal's active, they'll come to collect." The lab's warning klaxons broke the silence. "Incoming signal detected. Unregistered source. Nebula Sector 4. Rourke's eyes snapped to Elias. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." Elias checked the terminal. "Frequencies identical to the beacon pulse." Serene's voice was quiet. "They've heard your reply." The ship trembled slightly, a vibration so deep it felt alive. Rourke straightened. "All hands to stations. Power up shields." Elias turned to her. "You can't fight them." Her jaw clenched. "You don't know what we can do." Seren's expression softened. "I know what they can." The nebula outside began to glow, Not with light, but with motion. Filaments of energy twisted through the gas clouds like veins of luminescent gold. Then slowly, impossibly, something emerged. Not a ship, but a structure. Organic, massive, ancient. It dwarfed the Argus 9 like a planet might dwarf a bird. Contact on visual, Rourke said quietly. Elias stared. That's not architecture. That's biology. Serene nodded. The architects don't build with steel. They grow their designs, Rourke whispered. How do we stop it? You can't, Serene said. But you can choose what happens next. The ship's systems flickered, every console flashing with unreadable code. The same DNA pattern Elias had been analyzing pulsed across every screen, unreplicating. It wasn't a virus. It was recognition. They've found their children, Serene said softly. Rourke looked to Elias. You said they built us. You study genetics. Is there anything in us they can use against them? Elias's hands trembled. If they designed us, they designed weaknesses too. But that might mean using our own code as a weapon. Serene met his eyes. And that would destroy both of us. The lights dimmed. The great living ship outside sent out a pulse, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through metal and bone alike. Elias gritted his teeth. They're scanning us. Serene placed her hand on the glass wall separating her from him. Let them see. What are you doing? He demanded, reminding them what they created. The hum grew louder, then softened, like a sigh across the void. For a heartbeat, the entire ship went still. Then, without warning, the organic colossus began to retract into the nebula, its golden veins dimming one by one, until only silence remained. Rourke blinked. They're leaving. Elias stared. Why? Serene exhaled, a faint tremor in her voice. Because they saw something they hadn't expected. Resistance. Rourke turned to her sharply. They'll come back. Yes, Serene said. But not soon. Not while you still remember who you are. Elias stepped forward. And what are we exactly? Serene smiled faintly. A reminder that even the created can evolve beyond their makers. The Argus 9 drifted through the now still nebula, like a survivor emerging from the ashes of a forgotten storm. All around, the sensors showed only silence. The colossal living ship had vanished, leaving nothing but faint radiation echoes and a haunting sense of awareness that hadn't been there before. In the command deck, Captain Rourke stood at the viewport, eyes hard and distant. They just left, she said quietly. After all that, Dr. Elias Ward leaned against a console, the hum of his scanner still echoing faintly in his ears. No, he murmured. They didn't leave. They withdrew. Rourke turned to him. Difference? He met her gaze. Predators leave when they're done. Parents leave when they're waiting. Below deck, Serene sat in the dimly lit lab, free now, though the word freedom felt fragile in her mouth. The containment glass had been deactivated, but she hadn't stepped far from it. Her fingers traced faint lines across the surface, as if feeling the memory of what had once separated her from the others. When Elias entered, she didn't turn around. They're watching us still, she said softly. He stopped beside her. You can feel them. It's in the background noise of thought, she said. They built us to echo their awareness. Even when they're gone, they're there. He nodded slowly. That's what scares me. She looked at him then, her eyes glowing faintly. You're afraid of what they made you to be? I'm afraid of finding out they were right. He placed a small data crystal on the table, glowing faintly blue. These are the complete genome overlays, he said. Yours and mine. I ran a comparative sequence through every database we have. And? She asked. There's a dormant strand, he said. Identical in both of us, one, but inactive. It's not human or alien. It's something else entirely. Serene's expression sharpened. Architect code, he nodded. Yes, hidden deep in our DNA. It's like a seed waiting for a signal. The recall pulse, she whispered. Elias exhaled slowly. They weren't just scanning us. They were testing which of us would activate it. Serene stepped closer. What does it do? He looked at her, eyes weary. If I'm right, it's a failsafe. So it rewrites us into what they wanted us to become. Obedient, unified, silent. Her voice turned cold. A second genesis. He nodded grimly. I returned to the design. Serene glanced toward the viewport where the stars drifted in pale blue silence. Can we remove it? Elias hesitated. Not without rewriting everything else. It's tied to what makes us alive. So we either destroy what we are, she said, or risk becoming their tools again. He nodded. That's the choice. Captain Rourke entered then, her uniform disheveled, her voice quiet. We're still blind on long-range scanners, but Central Command's pinging for a report. What do I tell them? Elias met her gaze. Tell them the nebula was empty. No signal, no contact, no survivors. Rourke frowned. You want me to bury this? Yes, she crossed her arms. You're asking me to commit treason. He shook his head. I'm asking you to protect humanity from itself, Seren added softly. If your command learns what's inside your DNA, they'll activate it, thinking it's power. Rourke looked between them, then exhaled slowly. You two realize this is the kind of secret that gets erased from history. Elias gave a faint smile. Then maybe history doesn't deserve it. For a long moment the three of them stood in silence, the weight of an entire species pressing against their shoulders. Then Rourke turned toward the console. I'll purge the records, but after that you're both ghosts. Understand? Elias nodded. We already are. She gave him one last look, part suspicion, part admiration. Whatever you two are planning. Don't make me regret this. As she left, Seren looked at him. You lied easily for her. He smiled faintly. It wasn't a lie. Just not the whole truth. When the door sealed, Seren turned back to him. You're not destroying the data. No, he said. But I'm not keeping it either. She frowned. Then what? I'm hiding it? Not in the ship's core, not in any database. Her expression softened with understanding. In us, he nodded. The genetic key can be fragmented, buried in harmless sequences. Half in you, half in me. It'll stay dormant unless we're both present. Unless we choose to awaken it. Seren gave a slow smile. You'd trust me with that? He met her gaze. I trust you more than I trust what we came from. They worked in silence for hours, merging code, editing strands, balancing sequences. Each keystroke felt like a heartbeat. Each line of data was a promise not to repeat the mistakes of creation. When it was done, Elias leaned back, exhausted. There, he whispered. The architects can't take what they can't find. Seren reached out, taking his hand gently. You've just hidden the most powerful secret in the galaxy inside two fragile lives. He smiled faintly. Seems fitting. That's how it started, after all. Days passed. The Argus 9 limped out of the nebula, its hull scarred but intact. The stars ahead looked different now, not because they'd changed, but because those who saw them finally understood what they meant. Humanity wasn't the first spark of life. It was an echo, and maybe, just maybe, an improvement. Seren stood beside Elias at the viewport. You'll keep searching, won't you? She asked. He nodded. Not for them. For us. For the truth. For the parts of it worth keeping. The ship's engines roared softly as it set course for home. Elias turned to her. When they come back, and if they come back, they'll expect obedience. Serene's expression darkened. Then they'll find resistance instead. He smiled. Spoken like a human. She looked at him, eyes glinting with warmth. Spoken like family. In the quiet that followed, the DNA scanner on the lab bench flickered once, a faint glow in the dark. Its readout displayed two overlapping genetic helixes, interlocking like hands. The system labeled them simply Homo sapiens Variant A and Variant B. Status: stable. The light faded. The nebula behind them shimmered one last time, like the gaze of something vast watching from afar. Not angry, not defeated, just waiting. And deep within two hearts, two codes slept side by side, proof that the Creator's legacy was no longer theirs to control. When the Argus 9 finally broke into open space, Elias looked at the stars and whispered, "We were made in their image." Seren smiled softly beside him. "Then let's make a new one." The engines flared, carrying them into the endless dark, where humanity would write its next chapter, not as creations, but as creators.